So the first version of the Tamron 28-75 is a really interesting lens that has sat in a really interesting space in the videography world and my own kit for a number of years. It's almost a 24-70 lens, but not quite. But it is incredibly lightweight. It has great autofocus on Sony cameras. It has no buttons on it. The focus by wire manual focus is really tough to utilize, and the lens is pretty affordable. But is it good enough for professional work in 2025 and beyond? As someone who has used this lens since 2021 on almost all of my wedding, event, and commercial work, I feel that I can give a pretty comprehensive answer to this question. The short answer is yes. I've easily made over $100,000 using this lens on client work. But I want to talk about what my experience has been with this lens in all of those scenarios, and would I recommend it if you're somebody who's thinking about picking one up, as there's been so many other amazing newer lenses that have come out on the market since this lens dropped. And even a version 2 of this exact same lens is available with a more robust build and design. So let's go ahead and walk through all of the different shooting scenarios that I've used this lens on and break down its strengths and its weaknesses. The most prolific use of this lens is in my wedding work. It is my main workhorse lens for every single wedding that I film. It sits on my main camera the entire wedding day up until the lights go down on the dance floor during the reception, at which time I'll switch to a fast prime lens. But the 28-75 focal range works about as well as a 24-70 in my opinion. It's very rare that I'll be in a space so tight that that extra 4mm on the wide end is actually necessary and makes a significant difference to my framing. On wedding days, I'm almost always using autofocus, and the autofocus on this lens is one of the best that I have personally utilized. It's responsive and it stays locked on very well. It's my primary lens for catching people walking down the aisle or coming in for a grand entrance. The zoom is also incredibly smooth, so you don't have the issue with a jerky zoom in and out as people move towards or away from you, and you need to zoom in or out during the shot. As long as you don't do a ridiculously fast zoom adjustment, the autofocus keeps locked onto your subject as well during a zoom, so you almost have a parfocal zoom feeling that you'd get with some of the older camcorders. I've had some zoom lenses, namely the Tamron 18-300 most recently, that both have a really jerky zoom mechanism and really struggle to keep autofocus when you're zooming throughout the range. This results in some really ugly zoom ins and zoom outs, and I ended up honestly selling that lens because, nice as it is to have such a wide zoom range, that's pretty useless for a lot of applications when you can't zoom in and out smoothly. Like, you can't be tracking a bride coming down the aisle. But the 28-75 works really, really wonderfully in this scenario. Shifting over to corporate events and fashion shows, another major use case that I have for this lens, I honestly don't have a ton to add. It simply works great, and all of the strengths that it has as a wedding lens cross over into corporate events and fashion shows. Its greatest strength is its simplicity and the fact that it just works. It's a no-frills lens that just does what I need it to for any type of event shooting. When it comes to commercials, I have shot a lot of commercials utilizing this lens, many of them solely on this lens. Everything from fitness to insurance to life coaches and everything in between. And it just works, which really feels like a theme of this lens. It's not complicated, it's not flashy, it doesn't have an especially strong or unique character to it. It's just a sharp, clean lens with well-controlled flaring that's a workhorse. If you're someone trying to put a super unique look on your commercial and corporate work, this lens ain't it. But if your clients are like mine and they really want just a nice, simple, clean look to their footage, you're going to be pleased with the look that you can give your commercial projects with this lens, no question. I've never had a client complain about how it looks or how its big brother, the 70-180, looks. And That's great. It makes clients happy, which makes me happy. I've also shot a lot of educational videos, courses, and talking head interviews for clients using this lens. And as with the previous scenarios, it just works. It does the job. The autofocus is smooth and sticks to your subject as long as you're dialed in correctly on the camera. The focal range is perfect for interview subjects. I don't really like shooting portrait style interview shots any wider than 28 millimeters because of how it distorts the face. And I also don't like shooting anywhere beyond 75 millimeters because that's just way too far from your subject. I typically like shooting 50 to 35 millimeters is kind of the range that I feel really happy shooting interviews and I think just looks great on people. And with this lens, obviously that's incredibly achievable. So across all of the professional shooting scenarios that I've discussed, I've been incredibly positive with this lens. But what is it that I don't like about this lens? And simply put, there's really not much. The only thing that I can really strongly criticize with this lens for what it is the manual focus. The focus by wire system is awful. You can't reliably manually focus with this lens. If the subject is fairly still, you can, mess with it until you find the focus. But if your subject is moving around a lot, it's not good. It's frustrating. You're going to miss your focus a lot. And it's just not a lens, if manual focus is your style, that you're going to want to be using. I personally get around this by having a separate set of manual focus lenses for times when I want manual focus. But of course, in an ideal world, there would be a lens that could at least be, as good as like the Sigma Art lenses at manually focusing and have an AF/MF switch when you want to go back and forth. But, this would add bulk and weight onto the lens like the Sigma Arts or the G Masters. So everything is a trade-off, and I really like how light this lens is. But let's get down to the brass tacks of it. Would I recommend somebody to pick up this lens in 2025 or beyond? Absolutely. Especially if you can get one on the used market. I bought mine new for $879 in 2021, and you can find a lot of them for half of that on eBay used. I haven't used the version 2 of this lens, so I can't really speak to the comparison if you should get the version 1 or version 2 in that regard, but I personally don't feel any call to upgrade to the version 2 based on how well the version 1 has performed and continues to perform for me. So really, barring any unfortunate accidents, this lens is going to stay in my kit going forward for all my professional shooting for a very, very long time, probably for years to come. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and hitting that thumbs up, and I'll catch you in the next one.